Hey everyone, welcome back to Part-Time Tabletopper. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to be taking us on a journey to Middle-earth, specifically to the Shire, as we go on a crafting adventure making this Hobbit House. It's completely modular, 28, 32 millimeter scale, and I think is just a really cool little great design for beginners. It's going to be a foam craft. If you're looking at it and thinking, am I ready for this journey? Just remember what Gandalf said. I believe it was, even the smallest person or most beginning crafter can change the future of their gaming table, or something like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and create this Hobbit house. First, we're going to need some varying bits of XPS foam cut down on the Proxxon to some varying sizes. I'm also going to use an alpha blade here, or a hobby knife, as well as some varying glues. You see I'm going to use a hot glue gun here, as well as some tacky glue. First, I'm cutting out 3 5-inch by 5-inch squares that I'm going to stack on top of each other to make the base of this build. Then I'm going to make one thin piece and some varying pieces to use later. Now let's use the tacky glue to glue those 3 5x5 pieces together. This Hobbit house is going to be built into a hill, and I wanted the hills to overhang a little bit on the side of the house, so I'm taking another 2 thin strips and just adding them to the edge so that I have a little bit of a gradient for my hill when I cut it later. Here's that really thin piece you saw me cut earlier that I'm gluing to the front for the facade of the house. Now just clamp those together, and once they're dry, it should look like this. Now I'm just going to cut off that overhang and start to work on my roof shape. Now I'm going to mark the center of the facade here, as well as just 2 little side points that I'm going to use for my straight edge to draw out a triangular shape that I'm going to cut and then use to put the roof or the awning over the front. Now I'm going to start cutting the hill shape. With a combination of using my Proxxon as well as a hand hot wire cutter, I'm just going to slowly work at this piece to create a gradual hill slope going from the front and downward toward the back and sides. Now let's start working on the facade. We're going to start with the pieces that are drawn on first. So since Hobbit doors are circular, I just found something circular in my workshop and used that to trace on the shape of the door. I'm using a similar method for the windows here with a tracing stencil that I had lying around. I'm going for a look of plaster on the top and fieldstone or cobblestone on the bottom, so I'm just using an aluminum foil ball to texture the upper portion and then going to use this stone foam roller or clay roller to create that stone pattern on the bottom half. Now I'm going to go back over that tracing with a pen here just to deepen the recesses. And then we'll add some texture to those as well. Now I'm going to use a wire brush to just scratch and add a wood texture. Then I'm going to take a straight edge and draw in the edges of those wood beams. Now we're going to start working on the features that are going to be glued on and adding some depth. The first one is the frame for the door that I'm going to be making out of a fieldstone pattern. I'm using the same techniques before, tracing with circular objects around the workshop and then using this foam roller or clay roller to create that stone pattern and just going in and drawing those in for some deeper recesses. Now I'm just going to cut that out here using a hobby knife. Now that it's cut out, don't forget to carry that stone pattern around the edges too. Now we're going to use the same technique for the window frames, but I've decided I want those to be wood instead of stone. Now it's time to glue everything on. We're going to just line everything up to make sure it fits and see how we want to glue it on. And we're going to use some glue and then just a hobby knife to cut off the edges at the points we need to and make sure that everything lines up. Instead of a frame for the bottom of these windows, I've decided I'm going to try to make some flower boxes. I'm just kind of winging this as I go and cutting them out, making sure they fit the bottom of the windows, and then I'm going to end up cutting out the middle of them and adding in an adhesive and flowers much later on in the build. Now I want to make the overhang for that roof or the awning area. I just took a very thin piece of XPS foam I had laying around. I have a lot of these bits for projects just in case I need them. Cut it out to the shape of the actual awning, put a little slant there on the edge so that they line up as best they can, and then I'm just going to put some texture on these and glue them onto the build. To add some extra depth to the window, you see me here just putting in some glue and then breaking off a toothpick and putting it in place here. For my door handle, I just cut out a tiny little rectangle of chipboard or like cereal box cardboard, and I'm also going to put on a small jewelry ring here that I picked up a bag of from my local crafting store. I'm going to use that same chipboard or cereal box cardboard to add some decorative hinges here just because I think it really adds to the piece. Now, to really enhance the difference between the man-made portion and the hill, we're going to use some plaster of Paris and some green fiber insulation to create an earth texture that we're going to just put all over the hill part of this build. After I did this step, I thought it might be nice for that door to have a nice little front step, so just using that same roller I've been using for the stone, I'm going to go out and cut a front step that I'm going to glue onto the front of this door. We're going to black paint and Mod Podge this build just for a nice dark undertone and to harden the foam up. Once that dries, we're going to put down the base colors. We're going to use this burnt umber for the wood section, this pewter gray for the majority of the stone, the khaki for the plaster, and then some additional colors that we're going to use to enhance and differentiate the stones. I've also decided to use that burnt umber to paint over the plastered area to get started on the dirt. To add some style and variation to this field stone, we're going to go ahead and just start picking out random stones with some of those other colors that you saw me lay out, just to create some variety. Now we're going to start adding some layers. We're going to use this khaki here, or antique white, as well as a pale gray to dry brush over our stones. Then we're going to use this honey brown to dry brush over the wood, as well as this bright yellow. So for the wood here, we're going to start with just the honey brown, and then we're going to clip the edges with the bright yellow right after the fact. I've also decided to use that khaki or antique white to dry brush over the dirt and earth texture and just add some tone and variety to it. Now I'm going to use a homemade black wash and homemade brown wash on this build just to enhance the deeper portions and also create a little bit of a blend with the paint that we've already used. First, I'm going to start with a black wash over the dirt areas, though honestly this is going to get covered with flock. It's probably not necessary, I just like doing it. My favorite look with stones is to do a black wash over them, but then also while it's wet, add in some variations of the brown wash. I think this just really mixes it all together well and adds an earth tone to the rocks. Now you're going to see me start using a brown wash here on the wood, and that was before I remembered that my preferred way to do wood is to actually add a black wash, so I'm going to add that in just a second. But I will add some brown wash over that plaster. Sometimes if I feel the wash is a bit too heavy, I just spray some water on there to help blend it together more, but also thin it down. Now this is how it looks when it's dry. You could consider yourself done at this point, but I like to go back and do some extra dry brushing. Now you're going to see me regret my decision here and go back over the stone multiple times, and we'll get into that in a second. I am going to use the yellow here though to kind of dry brush the middle of that door and add what looks like a little bit of light and just really enhances the brightness of the center and the darkness at the edges. Same thing for the top of that awning. Now, not liking how that stone turned out after that dry brush, you see me trying to use an Agrax Earthshade here just because I think it's going to add more to the color. I end up not liking that too, and you're just going to watch me go back and play with the color of the stone until I finally find something that I like. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of Nuln Oil to go into all the crevices of this and just really darken up the recesses. On to the final touches. We're going to be using this green blended turf as well as this blended earth blend from Woodland Scenics to create the grass areas, this gloss Mod Podge to create some glass for the windows, and then varying plants for those flower boxes. I'm going to take this Mod Podge here and use that as my base adhesive over the earth texture to go ahead and pour on my flocking. I'm going to start off with the earth blend and just kind of spread it all over the place. I don't want it to go on too thick, so just use it sparingly. And then I'm going to take the green and just kind of push that into random places to create some variation in the vegetation. I'm just going to use this spray adhesive for the top layer that may not have gotten trapped by the Mod Podge. Like I mentioned, here's me still messing around with the color of the stone. In retrospect, I should have just left it the way it was after the first round of washes, but I'll get it to where I want it to be. Then I decided I want the inside of the Hobbit house to be dark, so I went ahead and painted the windows black. I'm also dry brushing khaki on some areas of the plaster. Now, take a gold or a silver paint. I'm using Retributor Armor by Citadel, and I'm using that to paint those intricate hinges as well as the door handle. For some added detail, I'm going to use a sepia shade over that gold on the door. Now, using a paintbrush, I'm going to use just a little bit of that gloss Mod Podge over the windows to create a shimmer effect that looks like glass. Now, using a bit of glue in those flower boxes, I'm just going to take some of those gamer grass flowers, but you can use any brand you want, and just put those in there to create some various colors in the front of the building. Then just one last finishing step if you want. You can go ahead and paint the bottom of this black. And that's it. If you follow those steps, you can create a Hobbit house just like this one. Now, I just kind of improvised as I made the facade for this house, so I'm sure there are lots of different ways you could make the front of this look the way it does, but the overall theme of having it in a hill, having it modular, and making it look like it belongs right in the Shire is the goal that we're looking for. So excited to see what you guys come up with, and hopefully I've got a new tutorial out for you guys in the next month, but until then, happy crafting and happy gaming. Bye, guys.